We are going to break down the essential soccer positions and their roles on the field. Whether you're a beginner, an experienced coach, or a parent looking to deepen your understanding, we'll explain the key responsibilities of each position, from the goalkeeper all the way to the forwards. Learn the difference between position and role, for example, why the goalkeeper might need to work on developing technique or striker is not always responsible for scoring goals. We'll also discuss team formations and how every player's role fits into the overall strategy. Whether you're playing or just watching, understanding soccer positions makes the game even more exciting. Let's define what are the differences between a position and a role. We will start with the simplest example. We all know what a goalkeeper is. They are the last person on defense, can use hands in the penalty area, and the goal is to make sure that the opponent doesn't score a goal. Position-wise, it's clear that they need to be closest to their own goal, keeping it as simple as it gets. But let's look at several scenarios and see that even though the position is clear, the role is not so straightforward. In the case of building our attack after a goal kick, do we want the goalkeeper to act as a player? We can have them be part of the puzzle that we put together to get the ball out from our own half with control and good amount of certainty that we can attack the opponent's goal. Alternatively, the goalkeeper can just kick the ball as far as possible after a goal kick, even though we have numerical disadvantage on the opponent's half. Those two options look like two different roles for the same position. How about the case where the opponents are pressing our defenders so much that they can either pass back to the keeper or kick the ball out of bounds to give us time to regroup? Clearly, some teams would prefer the safe option while others prefer involving the keeper hoping to keep possession. Here's the last goalkeeper scenario to look at. The opponent are trying to do counter-attack by launching a through ball in space. Should our goalkeeper stay high and run out to intercept the ball, or should it stay close to the goal line to avoid the risk of being caught far out and conceding a lob? The simple answer is that it depends on the role of the goalkeeper. The common role for a goalkeeper that plays a lot with their feet, passing to the teammates and is part of the game more often, is sweeper keeper. The other role of a more traditional keeper is often called shot stopper. Let's look at what changed in these scenarios, so we can define position and role. At the beginning of a game and the referee hasn't blown the whistle, we can easily see the formation of the team that will show us the position of the team. Basically, if the only reference point for a player is their teammates, then we see the position of that player within the team. However, once the game starts, the ball in the opposition will start changing the location of that player on the team. As we saw in the case of the goalkeeper example, the location on the field can be very tightly related to the role they are playing. Main role was to protect the goal, so it's as close as possible to the goal. However, if the role is sweeper keeper, then the goalie might go much further up the field when the ball, the opponents, and the teammates are on the opponent half. To take an extreme example the other way, at corner kicks you can see that there is very little correlation between a position and a role, where often centerbacks go forward and strikers are outside of the penalty area. More on that later. For now, we can say that position is where you are, especially in relation to your teammates, while role is what you do in specific soccer situations. Let us use 4-3-3 as a sample formation, and we will be digging into various positions and roles in it. We have two central defenders that are the last players in the defensive line. Then we have on each side a wide defender, sometimes called wingbacks or fullbacks, depending on their roles. Their main job is often to defend, but they can often go forward in various ways, depending on their roles on the team. The three players in the middle must both attack and defend, but depending on their focus we will determine their role. The wide attackers are often called wingers, but even they have different roles depending on their movement of attack and their collaboration with the other players. Finally, the striker is the most attacking player in general, but we will discuss the various roles that the striker can have that might not include scoring goals. Let's get into it one by one. As many teams do, we start building our team with the central defenders, numbered 4 and 5. Basically, they are the players on the team that are not allowed to make mistakes. Some of the best centerbacks in the world, such as Nesta, Maldini, Van Dijk, and Ramos, are known for winning duel after duel without a mistake. So, the typical players you find here are physical players that can respond quickly and will not be outmuscled by the opponent. If the opposition find a weak point in the central defenders, such as lack of strength or quickness, they will attempt to exploit that with every single ball. Now let's look at how the roles of the central defenders change in the phases of play. When the team is strongly defending, we have essentially two roles for them. One is the aggressor and the other one is the backup. In this scenario, we are playing against another 4-3-3 formation and the striker keeps moving sideways. We always want extra defender in our backline, so you can see how the role of the defender changes from marking the striker tightly to providing cover. Essentially, you always want to have one defender that can allow taking some risk, while the last defender being the insurance for that. Some central defenders excel in one role, while others are naturally dominant in the second one. However, they have to be good at both, or they will be exposed. Looking at the attacking setup, usually the central defenders stand back and sometimes get a third player to help out on defense. If they are playing against one striker, then the two of them are often enough, but sometimes they get help from the wide defenders or the most defensive midfielder. Note that if the opposition leaves two attackers to press high, then we should plan one having at least 3 defenders. Or if the opponents leave all 3 players, then we would need to keep 4 defending players. Now the contrary is what most coaches are annoyed with when coaching youth teams when the players have not been coached to think about the soccer context. The other team is defending with all players in their penalty area. Our defense is waiting at half-line because they are indoctrinated that they are defenders. Essentially we are playing 6 versus 11 and we are wondering why we cannot break their defense. The rule should be 1 extra player on defense, not to ignore all points of references and don't pass the half-line. Fullbacks have experienced a renaissance in the last few decades, sometimes dropping their usual numbers 2 and 3. The traditional fullbacks, like Roberto Carlos and Cafu, play differently than the modern fullbacks like Lahm and Alexander-Arnold. When defending, it is pretty clear that their main job is to defend the winger of the opposition. Sometimes, they might need to switch with our winger that came back to help the defense, like in this case of an overlap. The communication between the players has to be clear and fast. Alternatively, the fullback might have to cover for our central defenders stepping out at an opportunity to press. If the opposition striker has tried to receive the ball, but has done a sloppy touch and our central defender has a small chance to get the ball, but a great opportunity to apply lots of pressure on the striker to pass the ball back, then they have to take it. In an unfortunate event that the striker manages to get out of that tricky situation, our nearest fullback must maintain the coverage in the central area until the centerback can come back and recover the shape. Remember, the middle is more dangerous than the flanks. When attacking, the fullbacks can be more traditional or inverted. In the traditional setting, the wingback tries to push very high up the field when the ball is on their side, attacking together with the winger, often trying to get across into the box. That is why it is common for right-footed players to play as right-backs and left-footed players to play as left-backs. If the goal is to leave 3 players, then the fullback on one side is not part of the defense anymore, while the other one shifts into a 3-player supporting setup, essentially becoming a third central defender. If the ball moves to the other side, the defenders shift to support the opposite scenario. Some teams understand that the types of players that they have are better at pushing forward, while others are better as being a defender. So it is not uncommon for one of the fullback to always push forward, regardless if the attack is on their side or the other. The modern fullbacks are often called inverted fullbacks. Essentially, after the ball is moved out of the back line, one of the fullbacks moves into more central area, adding depth to the defensive midfielder and creating more of a 3-2-5 formation. If the fullback is, this option is often useful to cover areas of the field with less running, as the movement in and out of the central area requires less running than the length of the entire field. We have even seen cases where both fullbacks tuck in, but the defensive midfielder drop a bit deeper. This is particularly useful if the opposition plays only with one striker that is unlikely to outrun the central defenders. There are so many variations of what the roles of the midfielders can be. We will cover the traditional three roles: the holding midfielder 6, the central midfielder 8, and the attacking midfielder 10. Depending on the game plan, we often play with two holding midfielders and one attacking one, often called 4-2-3-1 formation. Other times, we might play with 1-6 and 2-8s. Players like Rodri, Busquets, and Kanté have mastered the role of 6. The holding midfielder is the last player in the midfield, and their role is often to slow the opposition down and make sure that they get numerical advantage. However, that also means that if they are at a disadvantage already, they will take risks to do aggressive tackles and get a yellow card for that foul. If they don't, then the central defender might get a red card for the same foul while being the last player on defense. When building out, the traditional 6 will stay as a connector between the offense and defense, often distributing the ball sideways and forward. While often not exciting to play that backup role in attack, a great 6 will anticipate issues in possession and provide outlet or even intercept a ball from the opposition and shut down a possible transition. They need to be comfortable being surrounded the opponents both in possession and out of possession. The central midfielder is the one we can spend most time interpreting. You can see technical and tactical magicians in this role, such as Pirlo, Xavi, and Modric. Because of the location on the field, they will be in most positions to have player actions. In defense, they will keep marking players and making challenges. Over and over and over again, they will be the ones that will shift a bit when marking, or track a running behind the lines, or step out to pressure the player with the ball. When they leave a gap on the field, it will be noticed for sure. As fun as playing defense is, the attacking role for a central midfielder is even more interesting. Let's assume that we are in a 4-2-3-1 formation and we are attacking. The central midfielder is coming late to the situation, perfectly suited to disrupt the defense. For example, it can go and make an overlap. Should the defender that marks him follow him and abandon the middle of the field, or leave him on the flank and ask his teammates to cover? Another option is to do an underlap and try to split the defense. As you can see here, the defense will be in chaos because they don't know if who should cover who. Should the defender marking the striker go and cover the runner? Or should they cover the striker and other central defender should mark the central midfielder? Here's a third option. The runner switched path out of the triangle, setting themselves for a dribble or a shot. The holding midfielder marking the 10 is not sure if they should stay or cover. They decide to cover and the 10 managed to get the ball and shoot. Notice that in this scenario the 8 didn't touch the ball, but was vital to create the space for their teammate. But the key was that they run, at the right time and the right place in the right direction. The attacking midfielder, often called a 10 or a playmaker, is the one player the most freedom. While we don't have classic 10, like Maradona, Ozil and Zidane, we still see lots of creativity packaged with other attributes from players like Bruno Fernandes, Odegaard, and Bellingham. It is truly a large burden to be expected to bring all the attacking creativity in a team. However, some players thrive in taking the ball and creating attacking options. When the team is defending, we set more of a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1-1 formation. We like them to drop back a bit, but still have that option that if we get the ball, they will be in the best position to receive it and move it forward quickly. When attacking, the attacking midfielder can do whatever they want. Let's set a simple situation here. The ball is with the 10 to start with, forming a triangle with the striker and the winger. They can dribble or play 1-2 with the striker, then shoot. Or they can send it to the winger for a cross and make a run for a header. Or they can send it to the other winger who is cutting in, escaping their defender. Or they can even slow down the pace and wait for the fullback to make an overlapping run. It is all up to them. The wingers are incredibly important in soccer, as they are the ones that provide lots of goals and assists. Players like Cristiano Ronaldo, Mbappe and Salah, are only few of the wingers that have terrified opponents in the last decade. The number we use to describe the wingers are usually 7 and 11. While the 4-3-3 formation was the standard for many decades in the last century, the soccer trend started to dictate wingers to play more defense, and many teams moved to a 4-4-2 formation towards the end of the century. When the team is defending against a slow attacking opponent, we like to drop the wingers back, basically in a line with the central midfield. If the fullback pushes on, the winger might need to track it all the way to the goal. However, that usually means that the other fullback is staying back and the winger can stay a bit higher and a bit more centrally. On the attack, we have two typical types of wingers. One is the traditional winger and the other one is the inverted one. Let's have a situation where the winger is so-called hugging the touchline. The aim is to stretch the field, maybe get a ball down the line and look for a cross. The right-footed traditional winger usually plays on the right, and the left-footed plays on the left. Their main weapon is the cross. Of course, they will combine with the 10 and the fullback to bring some interesting plays, and maybe the fullback will make the cross. Alternatively, you have the wingers play as inverted wingers or even sometimes inside forwards. Their main goal is to cut into the middle, often the penalty area, and they are the primary goal threats. Let's think about this position where the ball is on the side of the winger. You see in this case that they are allowing space for the fullback to make an overlap and create confusion in the defense. The winger might come even more centrally or even pass to the other winger, who is also an inverted winger and tries to get in a position to shoot. Many wingers change their roles, often in the middle of the game, to adjust for the opponent's weaknesses and for their teammates' roles. Speaking about changing roles all the time, the striker is the symbol of that. Often wearing a number 9, the striker has the freedom to do whatever it takes to score a goal. Don't forget that soccer is a game against an opponent, and as long as the striker has an advantage over the defender, they will exploit that advantage. For example, the classic nomadic strikers, such as Lukaku and Haaland, are big and strong, and they will use their body to hold up the ball and create space with their strength. The false 9s, such as Messi and Firmino, would drop in the midfield to offset the defenders and open space for the wingers to cut in. The complete strikers, such as Lewandowski and Kane, will keep switching roles, and we have seen them dropping to help the midfield, but also pushing forward and be the target man. Honestly, there is no wrong way to play as a striker as long as the goals for the team are there. There you have it. Hopefully now the difference between position and role are clear. During the youth development process, we recommend playing at least 2 positions and 2 roles within each position. It will help the development, understanding, and appreciation of the roles and the game. Let us know which positions you are most excited to hear a deep dive of. We are happy to share the development and training plans.